And that's been hard. Learning is cocoa is incredibly complicated. And each country where you source the beans is different. So, yeah.
Dude, okay. What popped in my head just now was this sounds like wine. Like
Uh-huh.
you right?
She
Because
got it. Yeah.
the root of the thing is like what soil is it grown in and what's been the
Terroir.
weather, the temperament. There's different varieties, I'm sure, for
Yeah.
different parts of the world. Like, oh my God, is this complicated just trying to figure out a different brand of Pinot Noir? Like, and then Pinot Noir out of all of the different kinds of like, okay, understood. It's a little complicated. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Small Business Success Talk. I'm your host, Christy Smallwood, and as usual, I am super happy to be here because I just really believe in what I do with this show, which is gathering those small business hero stories. I love this. If anybody were to like turn this interview back to me and I ask that question of what jazzes you the most, it really is hearing about these stories that they're sharing as business owners. Like, how did you just, what made you want to do this? Like, those kinds of things. And when we're going through our own stuff, it's always good to hear from other people who have been there, done that, or they've gone through it again or 100 times over. Like, they know how to navigate these waters. And so do you. Like, what is your business story? And your story is now part of their story. Like, all of this community that we get to build through this show is just exciting to me. And speaking of community, my people that I got to interview today, my guests were so wonderful. I've had no personal connection, which I loving expanding my community of business owners here. They are a lovely mother-daughter team out of Seattle, and they are the owners of the business formerly known as Seattle Chocolate Company, which is now Maeve Chocolate. I learned so much about chocolate and cocoa, and oh, I can't wait for you to learn too, and how to navigate this business and the industry, not just the business. And then how do you show up as yourself? And how do you land in a cause that's important, not just for the world, but for your industry, which helps your business because you're supporting, like, it's just really great conversation. I want us to just dive right into it. So I want to welcome my guests, Jean Thompson and Ellie Thompson, owners of Maeve Chocolate Company. Well, ladies, thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Small Business Success Talk. I am really looking forward to getting to learn more about you and your brand. So, you guys are from what I understand, a mother-daughter team. Is that correct?
Yes, we are.
Okay, whose bright idea was it to start a business together?
Oh, I thought you were going to say who's the mother. Well, actually, we didn't start the business. So, I was an investor in the business really early on. It's a 34-year-old company, Seattle Chocolate. And early on, they took on about a dozen investors, and I was one of those. And then I didn't become the owner until 2001, which is when the Nisqually earthquake destroyed the building that Seattle Chocolate was renting.
Oh,
At that
wow.
point, somebody needed to step up, move the equipment, retrofit another building with air conditioning and insulation, et cetera. And when I did that, I became the majority owner. So I didn't start it, but it's really taken a pretty severe 90-degree turn from where it was when it was founded and has become a really different company. So in some ways, I'm a reinvigorator rather than a farmer.
I
Farm.
love
I'm
that.
not a farmer either. Founder.
Well, you gotta start somewhere, and planting those seeds started in your
Exactly.
early
Love that.
investment, right? So
Yep.
now you're just harvesting at this point.
Exactly. So really, we became a mother-daughter team 6 years ago when Ellie graduated college. So we've been working together for the last 6 years, and there's been a lot of changes to the company since she joined.
So
Although
tell
I
me,
like to say, I've unofficially been working here since I was 5.
Yeah.
When my mom first started officially working there full time, I was in kindergarten. So I grew up in and out of the factory on my sick days. I came here. It's just always been a huge part of my life.
So let me
Yeah.
guess, you got to be an official taste tester?
Oh yeah. That was a big draw, I will say.
Yeah. She was very popular among her friends who wanted to come over with the always
Yeah.
present the bonbon bowl.
The
Oh yeah.
bonbon bowl. Oh my gosh. No, okay. Look, nobody really needs that in their house, but that sounds amazing.
It is. Actually, I
Exactly.
kind of think I do need it.
Although, isn't dark chocolate real healthy? I noticed you have some dark chocolate on there. I also noticed on your website something about creme brulee, something,
Oh yeah.
something,
Oh my
Creme
gosh, that's
brulee
one of the new.
crackle.
Yeah,
That's a
creme
good one.
brulee crackle. Because I was going to just say creme brulee crack because it's probably what it tastes
that's
like you
kind
can't
of
get enough of.
that's the
Yeah,
better
but
name. Yeah. Yeah. So dark chocolate on that point is got more cocoa in it. And cocoa, of course, is a plant. It's a tree and a seed. And a lot of people don't actually know where chocolate comes from, but it's an extremely healthy seed. And I won't go too deep, I promise. You can rein me in at any time, but it is the food that is the highest in antioxidants in the world. It's higher than blueberries. It's, more healthful than kale.
I'm certainly
So
not going to
it's
stop you from telling me how healthy dark chocolate is.
exactly, yeah. Well, so now the chocolate is different than cocoa. Like, so it's made from cocoa and that's its primary ingredient. So when you're in the dark chocolate area, you get 60 or 70, sometimes 80% cocoa. So that's why it's more healthy. But you still have health benefits in the milk chocolate, not really so much in the white because there's no cocoa solids where those antioxidants are. But cocoa, or excuse me, yeah, cocoa, and therefore chocolate has magnesium, protein, fiber, and then all these antioxidants we're talking about. Further, cocoa butter, which is the fat that is the base of cocoa, the bean, and then therefore the bar, is a heart healthy saturated fat, like an avocado. So while it's solid at room temperature, which is what defines it as saturated, it actually is, they have many studies on the heart that show that it actually improves your heart health. So you add ingredients to it that maybe aren't, as healthy, like sugar or whatever. But of course, that's the flavor profile that we love about chocolate is with a cane sugar. Anyhow, so it's still a pretty healthy snack as something as delicious as chocolate goes.
Okay, so Ellie, what was your degree in college?
I studied psychology and media studies. So
Okay.
kind of like a liberal arts marketing degree, if you will.
Well, psychology helps you a lot more in marketing than you might
Yeah.
think.
Oh, totally.
Totally.
So much.
To
Okay, so and the reason why I asked that was like either she had some sort of chemical degree or marketing because it's going to be helpful for the business. So, yeah, I was kind of right.
Yeah.
Yes, you
Got to be
were.
able to help. So, you guys, you invested in a mature business,
10 years old. Well,
10
actually, at the
years old.
beginning, it was not mature. It was pretty much a startup when I started investing. It's only
Whoa,
2 or 3 years
okay.
old. Yeah.
So, wow, this is fascinating. What made you want to invest in that in the first place?
Just the appeal of chocolate. And also, I think a little bit, maybe it's Mr. Rogers and me or something that, knowing and seeing how things are made is really interesting to me. So I have a marketing background, but I find the operation of our company to be super interesting and also an amazing opportunity to be creative and be a problem solver and try to find cost savings. And so that's something I had no background in that this has been really fun. So I think that whole seeing a manufacturer in Seattle, Washington, that's making chocolate or a chocolate confection was very appealing to be part of that.
Fascinating. Now, did you know as much about chocolate before you invested as you do now?
I knew nothing. I was like a normal consumer. Like, I know it's delicious. I know my favorite chocolate, and I know I need to eat it on a regular basis. That was about it.
Nice. Well, I already sense that you're an expert in this stuff now just by telling me the ingredients and what's in it. So, what at this point for each of you, what's the thing that jazzes you most about this business?
Mm, that's such a good question. It's changed for me. I've been doing this for 22 and a half years now. And it's really changed with sort of my learning curve and with where the company had evolved to as it improved. It became more profitable. I was able to lift my head up and care more about the industry, more about farmers and that kind of thing. So now, back then it was like, oh, chocolate's cool. Now it's we have such a big job ahead of us in the chocolate industry, doing everything that we can to preserve the crop of cocoa and the farmers of that crop, who are all in the equatorial region of the world and therefore not very well off. Honestly, most countries in that belt are not. And they're having a lot of difficulties now because climate change is hitting them hard. And so the cost has gone through the roof of cocoa. And a lot of that is supply and demand sort of basics where there's just not enough supply to go around. So therefore, the demand just keeps growing. The supply does not. And of course, that's going to spike the prices. So, but in a way, that's good. I mean, we can go into that later if you'd like, but I would say that our purpose and what gets me jazzed about the business is I feel like I can make a difference in the world. Like it's my mission.
I love that. Through chocolate, of all
Hmm.
things.
I know.
El- Ellie, what about you?
I think, well, following up on that is hard because I agree. It's like that's definitely like our guiding light, our reason for existing, and every decision we make kind of comes back to that. Like, is this making a positive impact? Are we doing right by our community, by the farmers, by all the people that touch our product along the supply chain? Because there's a lot of people. You can imagine it comes, from the equator region all the way up to Seattle, and just there's a lot of hands involved. So I think that's definitely motivating. But what jazzes me up most about my job. I love products. I think it's so fun to think through all of the little details of like what should the paperweight be? What should the colors be? What are the things that are most important to communicate on the front of pack, on the back of pack? What values are really are is our target audience really looking for? And just kind of, I guess the marketing side of things is just a blast for me. Especially with Maeve, creating Maeve was just such a jigsaw puzzle like a brain teaser kind of a problem to solve. And I'm just really proud of what we created.
So tell me how that transition even came to be. Like, I know you guys have transitioned from Seattle chocolate to Maeve, but how did how did you even need to make that decision? What brought that about? What inspired it? Tell me this story.
I'll start and say that I told you I used to work at Microsoft in marketing and communications. And the minute I started working at the company, I'm like, what is up with this name? Like, who names their company a regional name, therefore limiting it and its expansion forever, right? Because people like local products. People also have loyalty to local products, and it's just been much, much harder to get distribution in other parts of the country. And then even if we do, because the product is really great, then we have a harder time having consumers pull it off the shelf. So sometimes we'll get canceled in those other regions as we continue to grow in the Pacific Northwest, which is really pretty saturated with our distribution. So it was pretty clear. The data showed that that wasn't the best branding. So there was always that. But even from the beginning, when the company was 10 years old, when I joined, I thought it's too late. It's too late to make that change. It's a 10-year-old company. Nobody changes their name. That's crazy. So anyhow,
And
that was,
yet, here we
yeah,
are.
yeah, here I am 22 years later thinking it is a good idea. And then so how that change happened, I mean, we were growing, we were doing healthy, we became profitable, we just became a nice little, sort of small to mid-sized business. And then Ellie joined, and she's just always loved Seattle chocolate, right? Because we have two brands. We have J Coco and we had Seattle Chocolate, which is now called Maeve. So the umbrella company name is still Seattle Chocolate Company and always will be. Proud of our roots, located right here in the South area of Seattle with our manufacturing. But excuse me, Ellie joined and she said, I love Seattle Chocolate, Mom, but it's not cool anymore. And she's a Gen Z. So, and I wasn't like, what? Or insulted or surprised at all. I was like, I know, right? So anyhow, we were like, well, what do we do about it? And that was the sort of the germ of the idea.
Okay,
Yeah.
Ellie, since this was your bright idea, how did you get it
Yeah.
from there to
Oh
there
yeah.
to where?
Yeah. I mean, so I think we kind of started thinking through like where is our sweet spot? What is the white space in the industry and what are we seeing trend wise with our competitors? We found that a lot of our competitors kind of went in one of two directions. Either they were really kind of healthful messaging. You see like the like obviously like sustainable packaging and it's free from, there's none of this, there's none of this, there's none of this, and it's just all about healthful messaging. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we found that there was a lot of really fun brands, like kind of the classic candy brands that you think of, that have kind of crazy packaging and fun characters and all these things, but not none of the depth or substance that the healthful brands had. And we were like, we have the depth and the substance, but we're also really fun. We've created all of these seasonal lines with all these independent artists for Seattle Chocolate for all these years, and they were just full of like crazy graphics that differed so much from our everyday lines. So we were like, that's really who we are. That's what we want to do. That's what we've been doing on the side already for a long time. So we thought that there was this kind of white space to capture where we're super fun, highly maximalist, really colorful, crazy graphics, bespoke designs on every single bar, but we also have all of the amazing depth that you could find from a health forward brand. So all of our ingredients are clean. We use no artificial flavorings or colorings, no high fructose corn syrup. Just we go to great lengths to make sure that all of the ingredients are you can feel good about eating. So you can have really fun, wacky, crazy flavors like Moon Rocks, which is pop rocks and milk chocolate, but without any of the crap in it. Kind of.
What?
Yeah. Oh
We'll
yeah,
send
There's
you one of
I have it
those.
right here.
Pop
Oh,
rocks in
but I
milk
haven't learned.
chocolate.
Yeah.
Oh, my
And
inner
I have to,
five-year-old.
yeah, she would know, and so would you. I want to just say then, to the clean ingredient part, nothing against Pop Rocks, but it's not a candy that has clean ingredients. So we had to source popping candy from Turkey that had all clean ingredients. So to say that is not just a walk in the park. Everything's kosher, everything's non-GMO project verified, everything is, clean, and we were able to be sold in PCC and Whole Foods and Met Market and the premium grocery stores that have high standards. We're able to be sold there, and we're super fun. Who knew you could have both?
Well, I do in my business. That's where like, why are we taking everything so seriously? Let's lighten up. So I've
Yes,
incorporated superheroes over here because why not? Like every business
exactly.
owner wants to feel like they're a superhero. So
Because they
it's
are.
my they are. It's
Are.
my job to help activate their superpowers. That's what
That's
I do.
exactly right.
I just want to take a minute to thank the sponsor of our show, 502 Hemp in Louisville and 812 Hemp in Clarksville, Indiana. If you are looking for quality legal cannabis products, they are definitely your source. If you have questions of what would work best for you, their educated staff can help you choose the best product for your needs, like they did with me. I was having some real issues. One, my hormones were raging and I was raging all the time, just not in a very good place. And when I went to the store and I expressed everything that was going on, they asked additional questions that helped them get me to a solution. And the solution meaning better sleep at night, my inflammation's lower. I have been able to just be a better quality of life with my whole mental attitude because these things work great. My preference is the Maria products. That is a special blend that 502 Hemp owners have created themselves. And I use the Ultra Spectrum CBD gummies, the blood orange. It's 1,000 milligrams. Like this is the potent stuff, like meaning it's the highest milligrams I can get, and I need that for what my system needs. You may not need that much. They also have oils. And so I love the full spectrum here as well, but they have ranges, and according to what you're looking for to help in your body, they can help guide you in that way. So check them out at either 502hemp.com or 812hemp.com. Or if you're driving by, stop in one of the stores and they will absolutely be able to help you out. There's no need to wait for a medical dispensary to open. They have safe, reliable products now. And if you stop in a store, tell them Christy sent you, they'll give you 15% off. And not only that, but if you order online, 502hemp.com or 812hemp.com, and you put in that discount code of success, you'll also get 15% off. So check them out today And I very much appreciate them being a sponsor of Small Business Success Talk.
Get your dose of southern gossip served up country style.
Hey, it's me again. Now, I don't have much time, but you have just got to hear about this. Bitsy got stuck in her new Peloton. Bless her heart. Now, we got to give her credit for taking charge of her health again. But those shoes will be the death of her. If you haven't seen them, the shoes clip and lock into the pedals of that bike. Talk about forcing you to commit. I think if they had those on the Riding Bull over at Honky Tonks, more people would be able to stay on. And I would not have sprained my ankle. And whose idea was it to get Bitsy a Peloton? And I hope they make plus-size bicycle seats. I'm just saying, she's a whole lot of woman for that tiny little seat. We were sure she wouldn't make it through a minute of a class, but we did not know about Cody, the instructor with the tight abs and the delicious smile, who could make any lazy woman rethink exercise. It happened when she decided she needed to get down and get a drink of water. I mean, who knew the warm-up was going to be so challenging? And she couldn't get out. That bike had a steel grip on her feet, and it wasn't letting her go anywhere. She pulled, and she pushed, and she twisted, and she bent, and she tried it real fast, and then she tried it real slow. But the harder she tried and the more she kicked, the more it just kept whipping her body around, like that giant blow-up swirly man they put out front of the car dealership. It's a wonder she didn't break her back or fall completely over bringing the bike with her, which is what she said almost happened. And I bet that instructor would have kept right on pedaling and telling her to raise the resistance. They can be quite brutal that way. Luckily, she had her phone with her and she could call 911. Somebody should have warned the EMTs that in the struggle, a few body parts had escaped Bitsy's tightly fitting leotard that apparently had been working the hardest that day and should get the high score on the leaderboard for trying to hold everything in. It took 3 men to get her out, and a good bit of discussion over how to disable these locks until one bright bulb finally said, what if we just take her feet out of the shoes instead of the shoes out of the bike? And everybody stopped and stared and tried to say they were thinking the same thing. And so with one push and a pull, they extricated Bitsy from the shoes in that perilous situation. She was sweating so much from all the exertion that everybody agreed she had already worked out enough for the day. I heard tomorrow she's taking a body pump class, so we got the fire department on standby. There's just some bodies that don't need to be pumped, in my humble opinion. We all had bets placed that Bitsy would have given up by now, but we all underestimated the power of Cody. Okay, gotta go. More coming soon from the small town with the big heart, where the people stay but the gossip travels. And please remember, you did not hear it from me.
Absolutely love what you guys are doing. Love the look, the feel. I have my wish list in my head. I'm going to go back and do shopping, and because that whole creme brulee crackle stuff is definitely on my list.
Kind of ridiculously good, honestly.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. Okay, so in the process of all of this, like you've invested in a pre-existing business, you've made this transition. Out of all of this, what have you found has been your biggest challenges so far that you've overcome?
I feel like it varies by like sort of almost 8-year chapters, right? So the first 8 years was all about figuring this out. It was an incredibly steep learning curve. I didn't know anything. I'd never been in a manufacturing facility until I walked into this one that I owned. I'd only been to the Costco warehouse. I didn't understand warehouse management. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to run a business. I was, a corporate communications manager at Microsoft. And then I was actually an at-home mom raising Ellie and her older brother for 9 years. So I feel lucky that I've had those 3 different opportunities as a woman. But so yeah, the first 9 years were like, how do I do this? How do I not get in the way? How do I keep this company from failing because of my lack of understanding massive imposter syndrome, as you can imagine. Basically a complete turnover of the employees. One person remains at the company that's been here longer than me. She's a vital member. Anyhow, so you can get a sense for what I was going through, right?
Yeah.
It was all about
Yes, I can.
survival, right? So it's a tie between everything that was so hard in the first 9 years. But then it became, well, how do I differentiate us, right? How do I make this brand exciting and also getting into the distribution channel as a consumer product is probably the single hardest thing. How do you, because it's so competitive. Not
Sure.
just chocolate, but even chocolate's competing with coffee, who's competing with, snacks or whatever. Major premium on a slot in a grocery store. So how do you break free? How do you get them to want your bar? How do you navigate the channel, the broker, the distributor, the retailer? How do you build the pricing so that everybody gets a bit of margin and wants to carry your product? How do you build in promotions? It's very complicated. And as I talk to new entrepreneurs that like call me or want a little bit of help, that's the number one thing. They're like, why do you? And I'm like, yeah, that's hard. Yeah. So we've got that now, but we're actually trying to grow with Maeve into new regions. So we're right back on it, but at least we understand it. At first we didn't. And then how do you make a difference? Maybe it was sort of my age I was coming into that I no longer had kids at home. I was now like a citizen of the world, first and foremost, rather than a mother, which is a very big job. And obviously, it's clear what your top priority is, and nor a struggling business person, now sort of a stable business person. And I realized, and this is just in the last probably maybe 8 years, where it's like, what can we do to make a difference in the industry? And then it quickly morphed to the crop and the farm, and that's where I sort of started the conversation. So, and that's been hard. Learning is cocoa is incredibly complicated, and each country where you source the beans is different. So, yeah.
And okay, what popped in my head just now was this sounds like wine. Like
Uh-huh.
you right?
She
Because
got it. Yeah.
the root of the thing is like what soil is it grown in and what's been the
Terroir.
weather, the temperament. There's
Mhm.
different varieties, I'm sure, for
Yeah.
different parts of the world. Like, oh my God, is this complicated just trying to figure out a different brand of Pinot Noir? Like, and then Pinot Noir out of all of the different kinds of like, okay, understood. It's a little complicated.
Yes, but what's interesting is absolutely 100% true. But what's interesting is that because, like, so France and the United States, New Zealand, Australia, all the places that grow grapes tend to be developed nations. So the people who farm it, they have money. So, and then they actually have access to an incredible market, right? Europe, the United
Yeah,
States, whatever. The difference in cocoa is, which is a much older industry and crop, or crop anyway, is that it's equatorial, like I said. So the people that are there, they don't know how to get access to a market to sell their beans. So, and they've basically been impoverished the entire time that there's been cocoa. So the opportunity for them is more difficult. It creates problems. So it's much more, yes, it has all the same artisan potential. In fact, it's even more complex than a cocoa bean, right? And the way that you have to process it is far more difficult. And yet there's still the same opportunity for all that artisan flair and artistry, but it is hard to source and expensive, and a lot of people touch it.
wow.
And they haven't done a lot of research on the crop itself at origin. Up until like very recently, like 15 years, they even started was the first time they started naming the different varieties of cocoa. And that's been, that's a huge part of choosing a wine that you like or identifying it. People don't even know that there are varieties of cocoa, and they all taste and look completely different from one another, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So a lot is changing in cocoa right now at the same time.
I
It's fun.
honestly, I'm going to be walking away from this episode going, I've never been so excited about chocolate in my life.
Yay.
So, okay, you're at that stage now, you're a citizen of the world. What made you decide to claim it? Like put your stamp on those um those causes.
Um, well, initially it's interesting. So we started donating 10% of our net profits when we introduced the J Coco brand. It's got to be 14 years ago now. So the philanthropy thing and the opportunity to do good while making chocolate, because of its popularity among consumers, like I can give you the opportunity to donate just by buying chocolate, which we were going to do anyway. And initially, we started out like donating to food banks in the United States because it happened to have, it was on the tail end of a recession that we launched that brand. And we're like, hey, there's Americans that don't have enough food right now. So that was really our purpose. And then when we started adding it to the Seattle Chocolate, now Maeve brand, we sort of focused on Girls Inc. and helping girls because we're 75% women at our company. And we're like, we need to help other women and girls be able to realize their dreams, especially marginalized ones. So we did that for a while. And it wasn't until I think it was just last year that we were like, holy mackerel, if we don't do something to help those farmers. Yes, they're getting paid more now because the price is higher. That's really good. It's an opportunity to level that playing field a bit, but they still don't have enough money. I remember going to Peru. I think you were with me, Ellie, and we were like talking to them as they're showing us the fermentation tanks, and their goal for the year was to be able to buy a thermometer just so they can get the temperature of the fermentation, which, sort of helps with the science. And we're like, it was probably like a $50 item. They couldn't afford it, right? So those little things, being able to invest in the replanting of trees that have now been diseased because of climate change, the ability to diversify their income because there used to be two yields, two harvests, this word, two harvests a year, and now it's one. So these people live 12 months out of the year off of a 3-month harvest that isn't very lucrative. So we need to help them. So now we give 10% of our net profits with both brands to farmers. And it's not, I mean, obviously we're paying them a very fair wage and they're doing well that way, but this helps them, dig the borehole, set up a savings and loan organization that they can self-administer, put in a seedling nursery so they can replace their cocoa, but they can also grow shade trees, which makes for a healthier environment for the tree and for the people. What am I missing, Ellie?
We donated bicycles, we donated funds to diversify their funds, like to have some pigs or just other sources of income. Um, yeah, basically just asking them, what is it that would be most helpful to you? What is it that you actually need? And then making it happen for them.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. All right, so what have been some learning lessons along the way? Other
Oh
than
my
like
God.
you walked in and you
Incredible.
didn't know anything
Yeah.
yet, but
Yeah.
over along the way you're like, "Ooh, let's not do that again."
The thing I love about what I do and why it's going to be very difficult for Ellie to boot me to the curb and have an opportunity to run the company, which is the goal, is because I'm learning all the time. Like it's such an interesting, complex, troubled, and then so rewarding field that there's never a day where I don't learn something. So when I'm asked that question and it's so hard because what did I learn today would be the better question, right? But I think that if I boil it down, the thing I've learned is it's always about the people and the relationships. Not only having the right people, which I so do now, and that's probably my biggest accomplishment, they do it all, right? I'm just there to sort of steer the ship and make sure that's the color I like. But other than that, they do the work, right? But further, you need to ask for help from other people because there's just no way outside of your company. Hire consultants, hire, people who are going to be experts at the finance, which is something I never could be, given that I don't have a finance degree or, ever worked in that field. So it's all about people, just like anything. It's also what makes it fun. If it's somebody that I don't like, I'm not going to work with them anymore because guess what? This is the quality of my life, right? Yeah.
I love that. And I have told my clients, I'm like, you cannot grow or scale in a vacuum. So you have to be able to build those relationships to be able to grow the business the way that you want,
Yeah.
because one person can't do it all by themselves.
No
We
way.
just can't. We
Nope.
just can't.
No.
So what about you, Ellie? Jump in.
Yeah. So one of the hardest things to learn, I mean, I've been learning a lot over the past 7 years, 6 years. But I'd say one of the things that was most interesting and very challenging to get a grasp of was actually learning about how cocoa is grown and going with my mom growing up to origin, seeing the cocoa trees, learning about the precise way that it needs to be removed from the tree so that it can grow again, and the temperatures at which it's fermented and how it dries. And there's just so much that goes into it. I had no idea until I got a bit older and got the opportunity to go with my mom to just different origins around the cocoa belt. So I feel like that's part of, I think, learning all of that and having that kind of challenge of understanding it was what sparked the passion for me for the business in a lot of ways. When I was growing up, I had no idea I wanted to even be involved in the family business. And then going and meeting with people who grew the trees, seeing how complex and interesting it was and how much opportunity there is within cocoa to make something that's really, really special. Yeah, it spoke to me and made me want to do this for, my career.
So, how did that conversation go between you two when you decided, hey, we want to work together? Was
It
it?
was
I remember exactly where I was. Do you remember, Ellie? Not where I
I
was, but
don't
where you were. Yeah.
I don't remember where I was.
I was at a conference and I got a call and I'm like, Ellie never calls me because she was now like I want to say a senior in college. And I was like, oh, yay, I'm going to pull myself out of anything to chat with my daughter or my son. And she was like, do you think it would ever be possible for me to run Seattle Chocolate someday? And I was like,
Ooh.
what? It was never the plan, right? And not that I wouldn't have wanted it, but it's one of those things like you don't even dare to dream of one of your kids. I know my son, who's a developer, a programmer, that's the very last job on the planet that he would ever want to do. That's your thing. That's not my thing, right? So that's sort of, I know people struggle to be able to get the next generation interested, right? And here
Mhm.
she was reaching out to me and asking, and I'm like, yeah, yes, let's put you on that path.
And you're
Oop,
Oh,
is
we
she
lost her
frozen
there
great
for a
for
second.
you?
about it on my neck about like I got to arrive to the conclusion on my own in my own time. And I think that was a huge part of why I wanted to do it. Like it was my choice, which felt really good.
Hmm.
I I mean, I'm feeling that dynamic because sometimes it's, as we traditionally know, family-owned businesses are, the children feel a little obligated to take their spot in the company to make it keep going because
Yeah,
dad started it and they don't want to see it die and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes that doesn't work out real great.
no.
But your all's dynamic feels very different. And so that's why I'm even asking that question because I was curious, how did this even get sparked? So good for you, Ellie. Love that.
I always joke that
Oh.
Ellie's just really smart. She's like, how do I get her life? How do I get to travel to Origin and learn from farmers? Yeah, she's like, that
Yeah,
seems
well,
like
you know
fun.
what? Good for you, Mom, for
Oh
opening those
yeah.
doors of opportunity too. Like had to be a good example, and you
Yeah, for
provided
sure.
the space for her to be able to do that. So
Yeah,
well done, Mom.
thank you. Yeah, that's an ongoing journey to want to always make sure that, I mean, I've been in charge for 22 and a half years. How do I start backing out a little bit while making sure that this company that I've so much invested in succeeds, right?
Right.
What's the right time where the crossover will happen and what's the path that Ellie needs to go on to learn all the ins and outs. She's really focused for the last 6 years on marketing, completely rebranded the brand, so I mean, she's a mover and a shaker. And now it's, how does she learn all the other divisions of the company? And there's just a lot to learn.
So what's on the horizon for Maeve Chocolate?
Yeah.
So in the next year, we do a bunch of seasonal lines. That's like kind of been our bread and butter and one of our biggest differentiators because we do, the big chocolate holidays of Valentine's Day, Halloween, and the holidays. We also have a spring and a summer and a fall line. So we have new collections coming out starting this June with our summer line, and then fall, holiday, Valentine's Day, and spring. So we have probably, gosh, I want to say like 50 products coming out in the
Oh wow.
next year.
Look at this. Can you see this?
That's
Adorable
yeah.
It's a
summer
medley.
medley with a fair theme. We spared
Oh,
Yeah.
no fun. We spared no fun on this.
there's a roller coaster out there
Yeah.
even.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah, next year we have a lot of products coming out. Beyond that, is there anything else you'd want to add, Jean?
Um, I'm really excited about watching Maeve shatter the sort of regional barrier that I've had to deal with for 22 years. And actually, it was something that was very difficult to decide. Even though the reasons were pretty compelling and the data was there, it was still like, but the people who love us, they're from the Pacific Northwest and they're very loyal. Like we're their favorite chocolate. And to make that change was scary. Probably smarter people wouldn't have done it, right? But it's like we had to do something. Otherwise, eventually, I mean, I think it helps to be a marketer, honestly, running the company because I know that if you don't continue to reinvent yourself, you will become irrelevant. It's just a matter of time. I've watched every company that, Microsoft, and then they can come back, but they have to innovate, right? And the world is changing around us. Yes, we've mentioned the farmers a few times, but also the consumers are changing, right? When I joined the company, I was the target audience, right? And I was actually one of the first chocolate brands to realize it's women, by the way. Yes, men eat it almost 50%, 50-50, but it's women who are passionate about it. It's women who it's their favorite food. And we are the evangelists, right? So, and also women, especially back then, were the shoppers, right? So we really focused hard on women and we continue to do so because we feel like we're very relatable as a woman owned and run company. I lost my train of thought on that because I went down so many different rabbit holes.
Well, as women, we
Um,
know that it pairs well with anything. So,
exactly. But now what was I talking about initially?
You were
Let's talk about
talking about, oh, what's on the horizon for Maeve.
yes.
that's where I went. By the way, I am the queen of a rabbit hole. There's always something that's on my mind to talk about.
So she's
Um,
breaking the
oh,
barriers of
breaking the barriers.
local.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's what it
Yeah.
was. So I look forward to her being appealing, not just in other regions, but to younger people. Because Ellie, and it's really Ellie's influence again, is like, what is it that they are looking for? Where do they get their information? How do you appeal to them? And it just was a natural fit to start going to the Gen Z and the millennials because they research everything. And I think all of their purchases are a reflection of their personal brand, right? And I think that, the Xers and the boomers were a little different. And we're like, but we like it, right? So I think that we have a QR code on the inside of our bar wraps so that you can dive deep. You can learn more because what we've always done was the stuff they care about. Why? Because we care about it. We care. We're a carbon neutral plant. We only have recyclable and compostable wrappers because every little thing you do makes a difference, we think. And also, we feel it's really important. And it's actually one of the reasons that we wanted to expand is that because we know we're doing the right stuff, like we're working really hard, we're paying more for that compostable twist wrap. There's only one vendor in the whole world that makes it from the sustainable eucalyptus trees. And that's not smart to do that. And it's much more expensive, but we did it because we want to give consumers a good choice. Right now, I mean, try to go a week without buying plastic. Your toothpaste is
Well,
in plastic, everything,
yeah.
right?
And you can say that it's not smart, but it technically is because your brand is congruent all the way through. There's nowhere where that you've dropped the ball with the claim that you've made that you're eco healthy. Like you've not dropped the ball on that. And that builds a brand loyalty just as much as the taste of the chocolate is good. Like the whole culture, the whole message, the whole story around it, there's no gaps, there's no friction to it. It's a matter of this is true and this experience is real and it feels good and we're doing good in the world and I get to eat chocolate. Like
Doing
you
good by me.
cannot go wrong with that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's very insightful of you, Christy, because this has been my North Star throughout. I don't know the right answer, right? But I'll do what I believe is right. And if I feel like if I always do the right thing, I might find out later it wasn't the right thing. There's more information I didn't have access to, and then I'll correct it, right? But at the time, I'll never beat myself up because at the time I was properly motivated to do the right thing. I can look myself in the mirror. I can look back on my career and the impact that I've made and know that it was properly motivated. And I think people do see that. You don't realize you're like, we're doing all this stuff. We're not telling our story. People don't really know much about us, but they feel it somehow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. There was and I don't remember who it was, but I remember the episode. of a show where they talked about in one of those fancy New York restaurants that you can actually taste the difference in the food because of the energy of what's happening in the back.
To care more.
So they
Yeah.
care more. Like
Mhm.
everybody in that whole space was all about hospitality and customer service and hospitality. Like we are welcoming you in. This
To our
food is
home.
made with love and like you've literally tasted it different because of that. And so it's a ripple effect. Like that's what happens when you're able to truly connect and resonate with your target audience and they will try you, enjoy you and love you. Boom.
Yeah.
Totally.
That's all you can do. Yeah.
Yes.
That's the formula right there. There you go. There's the book you've just written.
All right, so a couple more questions and we'll do this quick. What like I already know what part of this in this room, but if you were to share with me like your heroes, the people who've influenced you over time in this kind of a um, journey, if you will, of your business ownership, who would that be? Who stands out to you as a big influencer?
Um, for me, it's sort of there's a few, I get influence from lots of different places, but it kind of started with my father. Honestly, he was sort of a tech guy, a programmer himself. He's 88 years old, and he became an entrepreneur late in life when he was sort of getting to the age where they were letting him go, and he's like, I have to be master of my
Doing
own destiny.
something.
And he owned a bar, and he is a first generation Irish American, and the things I learned from him were work ethic. We're like, if you don't fix this problem after 90 days, it's your problem. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. I mean, he has so many one-liners that really, really guide my way. Follow your instincts, make a mistake. Who cares? Make a decision. Right. So he was a big influence on who I am as a business person and as a person, I guess. Right. And then I watch people who do a really nice job running their business or that are so, maniacally focused, like a Melinda French Gates,
Mhm.
who, she is going to keep pivoting until she's really honing in on the thing that matters the most to her in the world. And I feel like I'm on a much smaller but parallel mission to do something, in my area. Um, and then I also was part of a business organization for 15 years called Entrepreneur Organization, and you had small little
Yep.
forums, and they became sort of your therapist and your board, and just people who were doing something similar, and you could bounce problems and things off of, and they would give such insight and honesty back that they were very formational for me.
Awesome.
Yeah. And for me, I wouldn't say I have necessarily like a business leader in my mind, or that comes to mind right away. I think I'm super lucky when I started working here. Our leadership staff is super, super experienced, tenured. Most of them have been here. I mean, like you said, Ruby's been here for 23 years, Marie's been here for 15 years, and they just have so much depth of knowledge. So I feel like I've been learning the most from all of them. In terms of like people who influence me, I think for me, it'd probably be a lot more of like kind of social media trends or like actual influencers. I was just talking actually with mom about the Gorillas as a band. It's kind of silly, but it's just one guy, but you think it's a whole group of people because he's created this whole world around his band. He's created literal cartoon characters for each person, the drummer, the guitarist, the bassist, and he's created this whole world that he's been putting out like music videos and posters and social media posts for literally 25 years now. And it just feels like you just want to be a part of it. It's such a community. So I hope with Maeve we can kind of do something similar along those lines, like personify some of these characters, like really build it into this kind of fantastical escape to the world of Maeve, if you will, and really lean into kind of it being more like a lifestyle community instead of just focusing on chocolate. So, yeah.
So, what advice would you give other business owners out there who are in a place of reinvention? What kind of advice would you give them since that's been your big thing recently? What would you say?
Um, well, I'm pretty risk tolerant. And I feel like you have to really want it, right? You have to believe this is right to your core. and then kind of don't back down. Like, so we did some research and, you're asking people who don't know anything about your business or your channel or your problems, what do you think? And then lo and behold, you get back answers that you're like, I don't think that's right. So, but you do it because you're told you should do the research. And then we actually did it. And I was like, I don't believe, the advice from the research person was you shouldn't do this. I'm like, yep, pay the man, move on. We're doing it because I know it's right. And this is my business and this is my company's future. And if we don't do it, I'm sure that eventually we're just going to fade. So trust yourself and be very convicted in what you need to do. Don't just do it on a whim, obviously, right? And then I think the second part of that is you got to give yourself enough time. And that is something I don't have a tendency to do. I'm like always in a rush to move to the next thing, got a lot of
I
energy.
don't know why you had to call me out like that, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing you in this, Christy. Uh, so I think if you give yourself enough runway and enough time to really scrutinize, oh, we should have done this, and you still have time to fix it and to fine tune it and to learn and to talk, get feedback from people you do trust, um, then you'll have a product that you've really thought through and that you think it like, is the very best it can be.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's all about really knowing yourself and knowing like which parts of yourself do you want to represent in your brand. And there can be times when that overlaps with trends, but I think if you follow a trend too hard, you kind of fall into the pit of like constantly needing to reinvent yourself. I think our brand is trendy because like the high maximalist, high fantasy is kind of trendy online, but I feel like it's very authentic to who we are and what we enjoy. So it will last, has legs past just this trend cycle on social.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't think we knew that when we started this process 3 years ago. Like we're like, whoa, and Maeve's the most popular girl, one of the most popular girls' names in America. Whoa, didn't know any of that. Just kind of got lucky. But I know one of the things that I add to the marketing team now as someone who's not in the audience anymore, the target audience, definitely aging out of, what's cool and trendy. I always say, why are we following trends? Why aren't we setting trends? And that's what I think.
Oh,
Hmm?
Jean. Dang.
I do a little mic drop.
Yes, that's a really good one.
Yeah.
Okay, final question. What does success look like for you?
Mm. I think having distribution in 50 states and, policy willing Canada, and having it be widely respected and having the kind of presence and popularity where it enables us to make a difference for the farmers, for the crop, for the industry, for the future.
Yeah. I think it would be a huge success if we got people, our target audience, understanding how complex cocoa is, how endangered it is as a crop, and just kind of people engaged more with the education of cocoa and became spokespeople for it on their own instead of us just kind of talking at them. Hopefully they adopt that perspective over time.
It's an education.
It
Yeah.
is. And then for you personally, what does success look like?
Me, both.
Yeah.
For me, it will be it's like very multifaceted, to keep going on this until I pass that baton to Ellie, a super healthy company that has a very bright future. And here's the part where I will go vulnerable, and that is that I can find joy after not doing this anymore. Because this is like the center of my life. This is my third child.
Yeah.
This is my life's purpose, right? How do I leave that? And how do I have my twilight years be interesting where I can continue to learn? So that'll be my next thing that I need to tackle.
It'll be
Oh,
fascinating to watch you not actually leave the industry.
Yeah, I might not. I might be a farmer. I said that at the beginning, Freudian, didn't I? I mean, maybe there's something there. I'm far too lazy. I can't be a farmer.
What about you,
oh,
Ellie? Personally, success-wise, what's that look like for you? What's that mean for you?
such a good question. And like you said, Mom, it's so multifaceted. I think having a purpose has been a really big way that I have felt successful over the last 6 years. Like I feel like what I'm doing matters and I'm needed and my opinion is valued and empowered. And that has been such a turning point for me personally, in terms of my growth. So continuing to feel like I have this really, I'm grounded in this sense of purpose. Also community, like feeling so connected to my coworkers and just to the community we've built here, I think gives me a lot of peace, mental peace and strength too, to like push through on days when I really don't want to. I can just think of them and feel just that intrinsic motivation from I don't want to let these people down. I love them, I care about them, and this matters. So yeah, I'd say in terms of relating to business specifically, probably the purpose community are two
Nice.
bits.
Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining me on this episode. It's been wonderful to get to know you and more about cocoa and chocolate and all of the fun things that you have going on. This is fantastic. I can't wait to see you do like a Mr. Rogers video of how chocolate made is.
That's
If
the
you
perfect
have,
part again.
that's right. Like
It's
you
Mr.
should totally
Rogers.
do
Yeah.
that. I still remember my favorite Mr. Rogers episode was one of those how crayons were made.
Oh,
And
Cool.
I've never seen that one. I remember where he was teaching us how a Stradivarius was made.
oh,
I mean, he went
see,
the
you
full
should
spectrum.
totally do Mr. Rogers style. Like that's ASMR nowadays. Like it's not that different. So,
Yeah.
Ellie, for you for context, that's
Yeah.
what
Even
we
I
grew up
understood
with.
that. Christy, thank you so much for hosting us and inviting us to be on your show.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Definitely will keep up with your progress.
And
Appreciate that.
we'll be sending you chocolate so you can get
Oh
that
yeah.
through life fix.
As I hinted in the intro, I had to message a friend after this interview because where I've been at in my own business, there's been a lot of shaking up. And, you go through those days where you just kind of question everything about yourself and the business and just everything as part of this process of entrepreneurship, business ownership, if you will. And just to listen to Jean and Ellie tell their stories about how they're growing this business and really tapping into the heart and the purpose. And that's the thing that's jazzing them. And like, I know what my purpose is. And I forgot because calamity struck. It was just chaos started to happen and it takes you off focus if you let it. And I'm walking away from that interview going, you know what? No, I know my purpose. I believe in what I'm doing. I am claiming it. I'm sticking with it. I'm moving forward with that. So I'm hoping it gave you a little bit of that motivation today. I hope you found value in it. Please remember to share with your friends, like this episode. Tell me what you think about it. Comment all the great things about the Maeve Chocolate Company that you could possibly tell me because I'm really looking forward to ordering some of that creme brulee crackle. I'm really looking forward to that. It's not on my food program, but nobody said I needed it. I said I'm looking forward to that. Plus, it helps so many people because I'm going to order. There's that. Always, always do good in the world. What does your version of success look like? I encourage you to go make your own success today. And yeah, that's the episode. Thanks for joining us on Small Business Success Talk. I'll see you again on the next one.